Okay. Making sure all the levels are right. 1, 2, test. Equals 1, 2, 3. Nice. You come here for the mature content, everyone.
Sam is 30.
I'm 30.
Would you
31
believe
this
it?
year. Okay. Now, Alec actually hasn't finished Death Stranding. You fall into the camp of people that played it and didn't love it. All right.
No, I really liked it, but something else took my attention.
Oh, okay. What was that?
I don't know. I think I just might have needed a little bit more content. Something a bit more bespoke.
Something that made you feel like it was really the perspective of the director.
And I wanted the director's involvement with the project.
Yeah.
See, the thing about normal things is when they're released, the director's apparently not involved. And then the director comes in after it's made
and stuff's cut.
and says, whoa. Let me do my own cut
Yeah.
for the thing I already made.
Yeah.
It'll be much better.
I think you're spot on there. So Alex looking forward to the cut of the director. Death Stranding director's cut is coming out in September. I think this is actually really showing us now that there's big plans for Sony's next-gen strategy with current IP that we all know and love and how they want to bring it to the next gen. Let's get into it. After this, after the drop, all this and more, let's get into it after this, the drop.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned after this. I am actually fat now.
You're fat now.
I'm 127 though. I weighed myself today.
Do you?
Guys, I'm 127 today. I was 129 the other day. So, weight loss journey starting on Laymen. Okay, 129
we'll document it.
to 127. Let's see if I can continue this. All right. So it's been a trend at the moment, which I'll let you take over in a minute. But what was the previous game that we saw director's cut?
Well, yeah, we'll get to that director's cut in a minute because that seems to be the flavour of the month.
Yep.
But we saw the Death Stranding trailer, the director's cut trailer at E3 just a couple weeks ago, and now in a sort of kind of like a Twitter Q&A, Jay Bohr, who is the head of publishing at Kojima Productions, sort of did a bit of he addressed some of the concerns or questions that people on Twitter had for him.
Handpicked questions.
Yes,
and
of
course.
But
Some of them were good.
I kind of appreciated his candor in it. Know, some people sort of might think it was a bit fake, but I quite liked it anyway. The point of it was that it basically right off the bat it got into the nitty gritty of how the upgrade system's going to work on the PS4, PS5, whatever platform you're on, how you're going to get your hands on this director's cut.
What was also good about the Twitter Q&A is it had some clarification around pricing. Now I'm going to put it on the screen here. As you can see, there's 3 different types of products that you can buy if you already have Death Stranding on PlayStation 4. You want to upgrade it to PlayStation 5, it's going to cost you $10 US. As you can see here there's also a digital deluxe edition and also the standard edition on PlayStation 5. You have the 2 options there. They're both director's cut on the PlayStation 5 version. You cannot get the director's cut on PlayStation 4, and that's how they've actually divvied up the tiered system with the new Death Stranding.
Yeah, and they made mention in the little interview, or whatever you want to call it, that this director's cut's going to specifically leverage the power of the PS5. So apparently we're getting weapons that couldn't have run on a PS4.
Weapons that couldn't run. It's just like, whoa,
yep,
it's too powerful.
We're also getting new vehicles and equipment that the PS4 just didn't have the capacity to handle.
You couldn't drive this. It was too powerful. The actual car, it went too fast. The SSD wouldn't load the world fast enough.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, it's weird how they've worded it. But basically, they essentially said that the game came out and then the PS5 came out. And instead of just doing, a normal retake, or not upscaling,
or a remaster or something,
or having a DualSense compatibility, all the 3D
haptic
audio,
feedback and all
that sort of stuff. Instead of giving that to you for free, they've actually decided that they're going to go back to the drawing board and add some new content in, and then be able to charge you the $10.
Yeah. So look, I think it's pretty clear now that yes, that's what you get, right? Let's talk about what it actually means, though. This is the second time now in the last week and a half or something that we've seen the director's cut really emerge and become a talking point.
Yeah, I was actually listening to. I've got to give it the credit. I was listening to the Sacred Symbols podcast, and I think it was Dustin Furman, who's the producer. He also hosts it. He said he made the connection that this might be Sony's kind of branding opportunity for bridging the games that came out on PS4, bridging them over to PS5, but also maybe potentially making an extra buck. On one hand, you've got the Xbox approach, the smart delivery. Everything kind of just works
For at least 2 years.
Yeah, and then you've got Sony's approach, which seems to be a little bit more cheeky. I don't know the extent of the new content in the director's cut version of this. We've got
It's pretty hazy, yeah. It doesn't really tell us what it actually is going to be.
But also on the Tsushima, Ghost of Tsushima side of things, like, they haven't really given us any idea of what the Iki Island expansion is going to give you in terms of breadth of content. You know, they've actually been almost, the silence has been kind of deafening. That if they had so much to show, they kind of would have given us a bit of a deep dive or a trailer. I mean, when's it out? August?
I believe
I think it's
so.
August. I mean, it was like 3 days ago, and I can't believe I've forgotten. But I'm pretty sure it's out like on around the 20th of August.
But on top of that, we're also going to see some Japanese lip syncing fixed. We are going to see the haptic feedback, the 3D audio. But like,
that's
I know,
but I'm saying that's stuff that should have been there anyway.
I agree. I think
so. What I'm saying is that, you know, there might not be that much content included in these expansions. Otherwise, Sony would really be playing it up. It's also important to make the distinction that, you know, obviously Sucker Punch, who do Tsushima, are a first-party studio, and so they really are beholden to Sony. I think Kojima Productions would have a little bit more autonomy with what they're doing with reference to Death Stranding and their projects.
Well, Sony did still fund, of course, Kojima Production. Well, in part, they helped a lot financially to bring this to light because it wasn't exclusive.
But here's the interesting thing. Sorry to cut you off, but the director's cut is only coming to PS5. It's not coming to It's not coming to PC.
Well, we don't know that yet.
But they would have made an announcement. They would have said something.
Not necessarily, because PlayStation 4 was announced, and then several months later, the PC version was actually announced. So we don't know if Sony just wants to get their money's worth first, and then they're going to allow Kojima Production to actually announce that it's also coming to PC. But I think, you know, you're right here. Like, the difference here is Xbox's main goal is to get people to start playing on the Xbox console or in the ecosystem of Xbox. Sony already has that player base. Xbox is incentivized to do the smart delivery and bring games to cross-gen because they need people to play the Xbox. Sony doesn't need, of course they always want more people, but they've already won that race. At least at the start of this next gen, they're already winning. They're in a really good position. So they seem like they just want to capitalize as much as possible on that fan base that, you know, that will line up for more and more Sony IP brought over to the next, you know, PlayStation 5. I think that, you know, it seems like if this continues to pay off, we'll see all of their content, all IP from Sony that's relatively popular. We'll start maybe seeing this under the branding of Director's Cut. Because if they can make $10 US per new, you know, game brought to PlayStation 5
for adaptive triggers.
Yeah, and like haptic feedback and a bit of 3D audio, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people are seeing what this is. I think we're going to see probably a God of War Director's Cut. We're probably going to see...
Well, maybe not, because Ragnarok's...
Shadow of the Colossus, you know? Like
Ragnarok's kind of close.
Well, we don't even know if it is.
Relatively.
It says 2022 or whatever.
Which isn't happening. Yeah, they've delayed it. But what I'm saying is, I mean, Sony hold the reins to all these studios. They've got the key to the castle, whatever analogy you want to use. Sony basically call the shots. And so if they walk into Santa Monica, or if they walk into, I don't know, whoever, maybe they've done it to Sucker Punch. Then if they go to Naughty Dog and say, hey, look, we are going to be released. We want a...
Director's Cut Last of Us.
We want to bring The Last of Us Part 2 onto PS5 natively. We also want to be able to justify charging $10 more for it. Sony seem really insistent on being able to justify that PlayStation 5 games are worth $10 more. They've done it with Returnal. It's $70.
On PlayStation 5 exclusive, you mean?
Of course, PS5, but yeah. Returnal's $70. Ratchet and Clank is $70. They are really wanting to hammer home the fact that this $10 price difference is justified. Now, that's a different discussion. But I think for the sake of consistency, you can say that Sony are being consistent. And if they need to go back to their studios and say, hey, we want a native PlayStation 5 version of The Last of Us Part 2, or we want a native PS5 version of God of War, but we don't want to charge $60, we want to charge $70, you need to make some extra content. You need to give us...
something.
4 hours worth of content, something new, maybe 3 or 2 hours worth of content, something new that we can slap on the back of a box and say, this is our director's cut. Can we have 70 now?
Yeah.
Or can we have the extra $10? We're going to give you this next gen upgrade, but for a small fee.
A lot of these companies are under the umbrella of Sony, but they need to also try and make Sony as much money as possible. They're a business, for God's sakes. Of course, that's kind of what they want to do. This will incentivize a lot of developers to also bring things to next gen if they can try and charge us as consumers $10. I'm not saying that I'm in agreement to the strategy. I'm just saying that I think that's the reality. When we look at like Studio Japan and stuff, that obviously wasn't making a lot of money for Sony, but these other studios that are making a decent amount of money for them, Sony's going to want to try and make more money out of them. Last of Us was a very successful franchise, and if they can bring this to PlayStation 5 and make it The Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut, it just means that Naughty Dog is also able to show Sony at the end of 2022, if it was to be released this financial year, how successful this 4 quarters was for them, because they were able to re-release it and they were able to make another $10 US off each hardcore fan. All that kind of stuff I think matters.
Yeah. And I think specifically the absence of any Director's Cut presence on PC, it just screams to me that this Director's Cut approach is a Sony initiative, though. I feel like it is a Sony initiative. I feel like Sony are going up and saying, do this for us and we'll pay you because we want to move it over, but we need to charge more. So it's interesting. I think
it is interesting.
I think that it's only 2 games that have done this, but it's 2 games in a very rapid succession that have had this Director's Cut moniker, and I think that it's potential and deliberate.
I think we're going to see more of this. People again. I think people. I think everything that we love about PlayStation 4 is going to come to PlayStation 5, and it's going to cost $10 to play it on PlayStation 5.
So we've got to get used to it.
I think we've got to get used to it. I think that Xbox is probably going to continue to do what they're doing. Smart delivery. It's all about getting people onto their platform. And I got to say, before we finish, I have really been respecting Xbox's Game Pass, smart delivery. It's pro-consumer way of doing things. But look, I don't think it's because they're good guy Xbox. They're just desperate to try and get as many people on their platform as possible. If the shoe was on the other foot, like we had seen when the Xbox 360 was at its height, it was the most popular platform. We saw Call of Duty exclusive content that they were kind of wrangling for themselves and not allowing on PlayStation back in 2013 and stuff. We've seen this before with Xbox. It's just because they're not in a position of power. So because of that, we are seeing some pro-consumer moves. And off the back of that, we are seeing Sony being able to now charge $10 for a game that we love on PlayStation 4 coming to PlayStation 5. But we'll have to see what happens in the future, guys. Is that it? Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think that's it, guys. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Love you. Appreciate you. We will see you guys next time. Laymen out.
Oh, and we are going to be...
I dabbed out, but I guess not.
We're going to be also... Stay tuned for our Director's Cut edition of this episode.
This is coming.
It's gonna cost you a little bit more.
Yep.
But after we release this video, we'll then want to go back to the drawing board and be more involved.
We'll add bring
you our true vision.
Well, because we've got a 1080p, but once we get to the 4K camera, we're just able to do both things. So
you can watch it in performance mode.
You stay tuned.